As the clock struck midnight, Doney was still standing at the arrival gate, makeup smudged, heels burning, hope slowly dying. She had spent 4 years waiting, sacrificing, and believing in a man who promised her forever. But when he finally stepped off the plane, he didn't come alone. The woman clinging to his arm wore a wedding dress, and Doney was invisible to them both. But what he didn't know, she wasn't the same girl he left behind, and she wasn't going to cry this time. Doney was a quiet, kind-hearted teacher in a small village. She didn't have much, but she had a big heart. When Ayoola, the man she loved deeply, got a chance to go to Canada, he told her it was for their future. He said he would work hard, save money, and come back to marry her. Doney believed every word. Even when others warned her to be careful, to think twice, she didn't listen. She trusted him completely. To help him leave, she sold her gold earrings, her late mother's necklace, and even borrowed money to pay for his visa and plane ticket. Her heart was full of hope. She imagined the day he would return, how they would build a life together, maybe open a school, have children, grow old side by side. She kept every little memory of him close. The letters he sent, the photos, the voice messages. People in the village whispered behind her back. Some said Ayoola would forget her. Others said he was already with someone else. But Doney smiled through it all. She believed that love meant standing by each other, even across oceans. To her, Ayoola was not just a man, he was her dream, and she was sure he would return one day and keep his promise. No matter how long it took, she waited, with a heart full of love and a mind full of faith. 4 years passed, and Ayoola never came home, not even once. Not for her birthday, not for Christmas, not even when her father passed away. Still, Doney kept believing. Every time a letter came from Canada, her heart would race. She would sit under the mango tree and read it over and over again, smiling like a girl in love. She kept all his letters in a small wooden box beside her bed, wrapped in a cloth. To her, they were like gold. She believed his words when he said, "Soon, just wait a little longer." She ignored the signs that others would have seen. He rarely called. When he did, the calls were short, rushed, and cold. He stopped calling her my future wife and just called her Doney. She noticed, but she told herself he was just tired or busy. She made excuses for him. Her heart didn't want to see the truth. Doney began planning their wedding by herself. She picked out the colors. She saved money for the celebration. She even bought fabric to sew her own wedding dress. Every night, she sat in her little room, stitching it by hand, putting her dreams into every thread. She had never seen a wedding outside the village, but in her heart, she believed hers would be special. Her students at school would often ask, "Auntie, when is your husband coming?" And she would smile and say, "Very soon. I will welcome him with flowers and love." The children knew her dream, to wait at the airport in that dress and take him home as her husband. That dream was the only thing keeping her going. She didn't know she was building a future alone, while he was living a different life far away. But still, she waited. She believed. The day Doney had waited for finally came. She woke up before the sun and wore the wedding dress she had sewn with her own hands. It wasn't fancy, but it was beautiful to her. Every stitch held her love, her prayers, and her hope. She added small earrings, tied her hair back neatly, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her heart was beating fast with joy. She believed this was the beginning of her forever. She had counted the days, the weeks, the years, and now her Ayoola was finally coming home. She took a bus to the city and arrived early at the airport. She stood close to the arrival gate, holding a small bouquet of flowers. Every time someone came out, she held her breath, thinking it was him, but it wasn't. Hours passed. Her feet began to hurt in her shoes. Her makeup started to melt in the heat, but she refused to sit. She wanted him to see her the moment he stepped out, standing tall, proud, and ready to be his bride. Then she saw him. Ayoola walked out of the gate, suitcase in one hand, and another woman holding his other hand. A beautiful woman in a shining white dress. A wedding dress. Doney blinked, thinking maybe she was dreaming or seeing wrong. But then, the woman turned, smiled sweetly, and kissed Ayoola full on the lips. Right there, in front of everyone. People clapped. Some smiled. But Doney felt like her heart had stopped. She tried to take a step forward, maybe call his name, but her legs felt weak. Her mouth was dry. Ayoola didn't even look around. He didn't see her. Or maybe He saw her and pretended not to. Her bouquet dropped to the floor. The sound of the kiss, the laughter, the noise around her, it all became distant. Her heart shattered. Her dream was over, and it ended right in front of her eyes. Doney stood frozen, unable to move. Her heart was breaking, but she still hoped it was all a mistake. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the woman beside Ayula was just a friend, or a cousin, or anything but what it looked like. So she picked up her courage and slowly walked closer, tears filling her eyes. She softly called his name. Ayula. He turned his head and looked at her, not with love, not even with surprise. He looked at her like she was a joke. A small smirk appeared on his lips, and he said with no shame, "You really came." His voice was cold, not the voice that once called her my love. It was like she meant nothing to him. Before she could even speak, the woman beside him, the one in the white wedding dress, looked at Doney up and down, then laughed out loud. "Wow," she said, looking at Ayula. "You were right. She really waited like a loyal village puppy." Her words cut through Doney like a knife. Ayula chuckled. A few people around them had started to notice the scene. Some whispered, some laughed. Doney felt like the ground should open and swallow her. She looked at Ayula again, hoping to see regret in his eyes, even a little. But he just looked away, like she was nobody, like the years she spent waiting, praying, saving for him, meant nothing. The humiliation was too much. Her hands were shaking, her cheeks were burning with shame. Her dress, the one she had made with so much love, now felt like a costume for a fool. More laughter echoed behind her as Sewa whispered something else to Ayula and giggled. Doney couldn't take it anymore. She turned and ran. She didn't care where. Her heart was heavy, her face wet with tears, her dreams crushed right there at the airport. She had waited 4 long years for this man. She had given him everything, and now all she had left was pain. Doney rushed into the airport restroom, her legs weak, her chest heavy like something was sitting on it. She locked herself in one of the stalls and let herself cry. Not just small tears, the kind of deep, painful cry that comes from the soul. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth, trying not to scream. She had been strong for so long. She had waited for Ayula, believed in him, dreamed of a wedding, of a life. And now, he had crushed it all with a smile and a new bride. Her heart felt like it had shattered into pieces she could never pick up again. She sat on the cold floor, her beautiful dress now wrinkled and stained with tears. Her makeup had run down her face. Her eyes were red and swollen. She felt foolish, ashamed, and completely alone. After a while, she came out to wash her face. As she stood by the sink, trying to clean herself up, a soft voice spoke behind her. "My dear, are you okay?" Doney looked up and saw a woman standing there, tall, graceful, and dressed in a rich-looking gown. The woman didn't look shocked or judgmental. She looked kind. She stepped closer and gently handed Doney a tissue. "Whatever it is, I want you to know, it won't break you," the woman said. Doney tried to say something, but her voice failed. She just nodded, eyes filled with fresh tears. The woman smiled softly, then pulled a card from her purse. "My name is Madame Luma," she said. "You don't know me, but I've been where you are. Maybe not the same story, but the same kind of pain. If you ever want to turn this heartbreak into something powerful, come find me." She placed the card in Doney's trembling hand, gave her one last kind look, and walked out. Doney looked at the card. It was simple, just a name, a number, and a business name she didn't recognize. But there was something in Madame Luma's eyes that gave her hope. For the first time that day, she didn't feel completely broken. Maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. Doney could have gone back to her village. Many people thought she would. After what happened at the airport, after the pain, the shame, the heartbreak, no one would blame her. But something had changed inside her. That card Madame Luma gave her, she didn't throw it away. She held it tightly, like it was a lifeline. She didn't call immediately. First, she cried. Then she cleaned her face, stood up, and told herself, "I will not let this be the end of me." She didn't have much money, but she used the little she had to rent a small space in the city. It wasn't a proper room. It was just a bed in a crowded apartment she shared with 3 other women. But it was her start. Every morning, she walked far to look for jobs. One day, she found work in a fabric warehouse. The pay was small, but she didn't complain. She folded fabrics, cleaned floors, helped customers, and stayed quiet. But her eyes were always watching. She was learning. At night, after long hours at work, Doney would sit with her phone and search online for sewing tutorials. She watched videos, practiced sketches, and taught herself fashion skills. little by little. Sometimes she ate only once a day, just to save money for sewing tools. Her roommates laughed at her, called her a dreamer, said she should just get married and stop wasting time. But Doney didn't forget how Ayoola and Sewa laughed at her at the airport. That memory gave her strength. She wanted to become someone they would regret ever mocking. One day, she finally called Madame Luma. She didn't expect the woman to remember her, but Madame Luma did. "I was waiting for your call," she said. And just like that, a new chapter began. Madame Luma gave her an internship in her fashion house. It wasn't easy. There were rules, pressure, and a lot of hard work. But Doney gave it her all. She listened, learned, and pushed herself. Her designs slowly got better. Her fingers grew faster. Her confidence grew stronger. In just 3 years, with Luma's guidance, Doney launched her own brand. She called it Doney Wears. Simple, powerful, and full of her story. She was no longer the girl who waited at the airport. She was a woman building her future with her own hands, and the world was about to know her name. Doney poured all her pain, all her memories, and all her village roots into her designs. She named her brand Doney Wears, short, strong, and full of meaning. Every piece she created told a story. Some were inspired by the simple fabrics women in her village used to wear. Others carried colours that reminded her of sunsets she watched when waiting for Ayoola's letters. The stitches weren't just thread, they were pieces of her heart, sewn together with strength. She didn't have a big launch. She started small, posting her designs online with her phone. She styled herself, used her shared room as a backdrop, and wrote simple captions like, "For the girl who was laughed at, but never gave up." Slowly, people started noticing. One day, a local influencer wore one of her designs and tagged her. That post brought in dozens of new followers. Orders began to trickle in. Then it happened. The moment that changed everything. A famous celebrity, one known for bold fashion, saw a post of Doney Wears online and ordered a dress. Doney didn't believe it at first. She thought it was a prank, but it was real. She stayed up all night to sew the perfect dress, poured everything into it, and delivered it herself. A week later, photos of the celebrity wearing her design at a red carpet event went viral. People couldn't stop talking. Who made this? Where can I buy this? Doney Wears. Who is she? Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Her inbox was full. Orders came from across the country, some even from abroad. With the money she earned, Doney rented a small shop and turned it into her first boutique. She painted the walls herself, arranged the mannequins, and hung a simple sign, Doney Wears, strength in style. Clients walked in every day. Some cried when they met her. They said her story gave them hope. Fashion magazines started writing about her. Big designers started noticing her. Her name was no longer just whispered in corners. It was spoken with respect in fashion circles. Doney didn't forget where she came from. She hired women from villages, trained them, and paid them well. She became a light for others, just like Madame Luma had been for her. All the heartbreak, all the tears, all the betrayal, it had turned into something beautiful. Doney Wears wasn't just a fashion brand, it was a movement, a reminder that even the most broken heart can rise again and shine brighter than ever. Doney received an invitation to design outfits for a big wedding vow renewal. It was a high-class event, full of important people. The couple wanted something unique, something bold. They had heard of Doney Wears and trusted her style. Doney, calm and confident, accepted the job. She worked with passion, making beautiful dresses with royal touches. Her team helped her bring the vision to life, and soon she was ready to present her designs at the event. When she arrived at the luxurious venue, cameras flashed and guests whispered her name. Everyone wanted to meet the woman behind the brand, but as she walked in with her head held high, her eyes fell on the bride. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Sewa, the same woman who once mocked her at the airport, the one who had kissed Ayoola in front of her and laughed at her pain. And standing beside Sewa, looking much older and drained, was Ayoola himself. He no longer looked like the charming man from Canada. His eyes were tired, his suit was loose, and his smile was forced. The sparkle was gone. Their boutique, she heard, had been failing for months. Business was slow. Clients had stopped coming. They were hoping this event would bring attention and maybe help them rise again. But the moment they saw Doney, their faces dropped. Sewa's fake smile froze. Ayoola's eyes widened. He couldn't believe it. The village girl, the one he once used and left behind, was now the star of the night. Everyone wanted to shake her hand, take photos with her, and ask about her designs. She was no longer the girl waiting at the airport. She was a boss, a creator, a name that carried weight. Sewa forced a laugh, but her voice trembled. Ayoola couldn't even meet her eyes. The crowd didn't care about the couple anymore. All attention had shifted to Doney and Doney. She didn't show anger or revenge. She simply smiled with grace. She greeted them kindly, not as a woman in pain, but as one who had healed, grown, and conquered. In that moment, without saying a word, she showed them exactly who she had become. The fire they lit inside her years ago didn't burn her down. It made her shine brighter than ever. Sewa followed Doney quietly during the event, her face pale and full of worry. She waited until no one was watching, then quickly pulled Doney aside. Her voice was shaking, and her eyes were filled with tears. "Please, help us," she whispered. "Our boutique is dying. We have no money left. No one is buying. We need you." Doney looked at her calmly. Her heart didn't beat faster, and her hands didn't shake like they once would have. She just stood there, strong and still, like a tree that had survived many storms. Ayoola stood a few steps away, staring at the floor. He couldn't even lift his head to face her. His silence said everything. He was no longer proud, no longer powerful, just broken. Sewa kept talking, her voice desperate. "You're big now. You have everything. Maybe if you say a good word about our shop, or even share one of our posts, people will notice us again. Please. We're sorry." Doney listened without interrupting. Then she smiled. But it wasn't a smile of revenge or pride. It was a smile of peace, the kind that comes from healing. She looked at Sewa and then at Ayoola, and in a soft, steady voice she said, "I waited for you once, every day, with hope in my heart. Now, the world waits for me." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She didn't insult them. Her silence after those words was louder than any scream. It was full of strength. She turned around slowly and walked away, her head held high. The moment was quiet, but it shook them deeply. She didn't need to fight. She didn't need to take revenge. Her success, her calm, and her quiet power were more than enough. And as she walked back into the lights and cameras, everyone turned to look at her. The woman who had once been left behind, now standing in her glory. Doney stood on the grand stage, the light shining softly on her face. She wore a gown she designed herself, elegant, bold, and full of meaning. The crowd at the gala had come to celebrate fashion, but when Doney stepped up to speak, they became silent, ready to listen not just to a designer, but to a woman who had lived a story deeper than any runway. She held the microphone gently, her voice calm but strong. "A few years ago," she began, "I stood at the airport, waiting for someone I loved. He didn't come back for me. Instead, he walked past me, holding another woman's hand. That moment broke me, but it also built me." Gasps filled the room. No one had expected her to share something so personal, but Doney continued, her words soft but powerful. "Everyone thought I had lost. But the truth is, sometimes, being left behind is the best thing that can happen to you. It gives you a head start to find your true self." People began to nod, some with tears in their eyes. "If he hadn't left me," she said, "I would still be waiting, still hoping, still hiding my strength. But pain pushed me, betrayal taught me, and now I stand here, not just as a fashion designer, but as a woman who rose from ruin." The entire hall rose to their feet. The applause was loud, long, and full of respect. Cameras flashed, eyes sparkled. Doney smiled, not because she had won revenge, but because she had found herself. She was no longer the girl who was left behind at the airport. She was now a queen in her own right, leading, inspiring, and shining brighter than ever before. If Doney's story touched your heart, don't scroll past. Share this now to remind someone that being left behind can be the start of something powerful. Follow for more inspiring stories of strength, glow-ups, and unstoppable comeback. Your rise starts today.